I'm going to share with you what it means to have a spiritual awakening and how to determine that it is not a mental condition, but an actual spiritual experience. I've seen and heard many times, especially on this app, people explaining spiritual awakenings or their awakening symptoms and experiences, and so have I. And then some people having the audacity to comment and say, well, this sounds a lot like a psychosis or a neurosis. I want to make this very clear that a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening is not a mental disorder. The reason why oftentimes people think it is because they're coming from a westernized ideology of medicine. The Western culture largely looks at the mental, emotional, and the physical aspect of a human's health instead of including the spiritual aspect to it. Because spiritual is not something that you can grasp, right? It is not something part of the physical reality. It is part of a higher reality, an extra dimension that the Western medicine ideologies, they do not include this aspect of the human experience. And so many times spiritual awakenings are misdiagnosed as having a psychosis. Having a psychosis or a mental breakdown or emotional difficulties or mental difficulties, these are just parts of the whole experiences. They're little aspects of the experience. But spiritual awakening is way bigger than that. It engulfs everything. It includes the whole experience and not just parts of the experiences. One of the things that happens in the beginning of your spiritual awakening is that for you to rise to a higher level of awareness, what must happen is the limitations, the beliefs that you have about reality that are a part of your brain and about a part of your conditioning has to deconstruct and literally break apart or break down. That is the only way for us usually to move through and into higher levels of understanding. Now, if you lived in the Eastern world, or if you've always been a very avid meditator since childhood, you may never have to go through that experience in those extremes, because you have always conditioned your mind to be spiritually open. So you have never had the experience of shutting yourself down or blocking yourself to be able to survive the experiences that life had thrown at you, to then arrive in a moment in time in your future as an adult self, usually in your late 30s, early 40s, sometimes at other ages, where you have the experience of needing to break down all of these learned patterns to be able to escape out of it and to be able to expand your awareness and rise in consciousness. So I think this is why some of us have very intense spiritual awakenings, while other people have a more slow approach to it or are able to slowly lean into these experiences. You are literally adding another layer or a couple more layers to your dimensional experiences. So you're usually, the unawakened human being experiences reality in the 3D, three-dimensional, right? Which is very physical and mental. And then actually the fourth dimension is more mental, right? And then we move into the fifth dimension, from where time and space literally no longer exist. We break through all these limitations and beliefs about time and space reality. Now, of course, these things can only happen if you're breaking through your old patterns and brain structures and limitations that you have been accustomed to over your life. Otherwise, you would never be able to move through these dimensions. And it doesn't mean that you weren't able to do these things when you were younger. It just means at some time in your life, you had limited yourself and blocked yourself, because that extra sense of awareness would have allowed you to access information about yourself possibly, or people in your environment that would have been threatening to you or dangerous to you. And so if it was threatening or dangerous to you to know these things, because maybe you would have been attacked by the environment and other people, you had to block yourself and pretend that you didn't know. Pretend you don't know what they're talking about. Pretend not knowing the bad things that they're doing to you. So a lot of times what I found personally is that people who've experienced childhood sexual abuse or any kind of abuse as children, oftentimes they block themselves off. right? And most of us survivors do know that. Usually by the time we're teenagers, we start to kind of clue in. But if then the environment doesn't support that opening, that awareness, then we shut ourselves down again, right? Because we are putting ourselves into protection mode. So for a long, long, long time, you're going to be in protection mode until the moment that represents itself for you to have an awakening, to be able to open up. Because as soon as you open up to these extra dimensions and your awareness grows and your consciousness rises, you're going to be inevitably going to be confronted with all of the memories and the things, the knowledge of who you are and what happened to you when you were a child, or the bad things other people did to you or did around you, right? You have to become aware of it. That has massive implications for some of us, right? Because it oftentimes means that we can no longer communicate with these people because we realize that they're dangerous for us, right? And so we have to be in a place where we can escape that or move away from that or feel strong enough to fight that, right? So we have a system, our nervous system is fight, flight. Fight, flight is usually something that men are really good at. Women are more people who are shutting themselves down mentally and don't remember things. This is why women sometimes appear to be kind of looking like a deer caught in headlights, because they have mentally blocked themselves off from fully experiencing exactly what's happening. It's very difficult for people to understand the psychological games that people play around them. And to even open yourself up to that and starting to learn about it, you have to be in a place where you're safe to do so, right? Because as soon as you start to clue into the games that are being played, those players might gonna try to get at you and try to hold you down, try to hurt you, try to attack you yet again. And then will just lead into more of yourself shutting yourself down again because you're feeling attacked. So I just felt that I had to mention that, because I think a lot of people don't understand that spiritual awakenings go hand in hand with all the other experiences that you're having on a mental and emotional level, especially if you're a survivor of trauma, of sexual abuse or child abuse in any forms or shape. You're going to have to be in protection mode to survive, to get to a place in your adulthood where you feel safe enough to explore that part of yourself. And I'm still seeing that in some people in my own family who have not put themselves in a safe place. They're still in close vicinity with the abusers. And they are not conscious or aware of any of the things that I remember that happened in our childhood, that I know happened to them too, because I saw it happening to them. So I'm sharing this with you so that you are conscious and aware of the fact that these things do happen, and that spiritual awakenings are here in place for you to grow in awareness and rise in consciousness, and then also help other people around you to do the same thing. Because unconscious people cannot leave this world. Unconscious people cannot have any effect on this world in a positive sense. So the awakening of humanity, of our human population, is so important. Because the more people are awake, the more that we're capable of creating the world that we actually want to see, right? So a lot of people who are engaging in war, who are still in fight-flight mode, right? They're creating a world that is detrimental for human health and also for animal health and plant health and the whole planet. So the more we become aware and the more we are awakened, the more that we can create positive change in our environment. And it all starts with self-awareness. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer it.